Meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, and we have a full house, which is a great evening for the community of Hastings. So let the roll reflect that all council members have been, are present and a quorum has been established. Tonight we have a special honor, and it is to say goodbye to our police chief, but it's also welcoming our new police chief, our commander, and two new officers. So Chief Schafer, you know, for your work here, you have put tireless effort into our community and professionalism that set a tone for the rest of the department. I was honored to be on that hiring committee 8 years ago while I was on PSAC commission. And I was so glad that you chose Hastings for your next and final, as we find out tonight, your position. So know that you always will have a home here in Hastings. And I'll just say you have the key to the city. We won't give you one, but I'll say it. I personally would love to just wish you the best in your future, whatever that may be. I hope you ride into the sunset on many days and have lunch outside and whatever you wish to do in the winter. I hope it's done with all happiness, and know that you have left our community, and we are very proud that you were here for us for 8 years. Council? Comments?
I do.
Councilmember
I'll make
Vaughn.
it quick here. Chief Bryan, I think the key that I think the community needs to know that I've seen since being on the council and since Bryan's been here is the word consistent. This department is one of the most consistent that we have. And every decision that is made from Chief Schafer down, his staff follows. And it's very consistent. That's important to the community, and I appreciate you bringing that, because I think it's important that the community knows they're going to get the same answer no matter what, because your department is set up to be consistent. And that's so important to me as an elected official representing the residents. And Bryan, you did a good job on that, bringing that to everybody. And Chief Wilski, I think you're next. You're going to have to keep that up, and Showalter, you'll have to follow with that too. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Brox.
Chief, I just want to say thank you. One thing that came out in the interview process for Chief was just the culture that you created, a different culture than when you arrived, one of openness and trust with each other, and you just brought our police department, you've evolved it so much further than it was before. And I know the last 8 years, I can't imagine that you imagined what was going to happen in the world and in the culture within that time, so I'm sure it hasn't been easy. But I just want to say thank you from the residents of Hastings and also as a council member that you've made a difference here, and it's going to have a lasting impact that will last much beyond your career for creating that cultural change. We just really appreciate you.
Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you. Chief, I just want to add, in addition to the words that were just said, I would like to personally say thank you for your patience with us as council members, because we have lots of questions, and you've always been gracious and kind, and we have always felt, and I know I feel confident that I speak for all of us. We feel that we can trust your guidance and your advice, and so, I mean, that is just immeasurable. And so thank you so much. You're going to be so greatly missed. And thank you for having such a wonderful staff, and that we can have confidence moving forward into the future with your team. So thank you again.
Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief, it's been wonderful getting to know you. The big thing I'm really thinking about, everything everyone else here is saying is, spot on, but looking at the connection to the community over the last, 3 to 5 years that I'm noticing, and just always putting that, the walking the walk, talking the talk. You're out in the public, you're accessible. I remember coming to you years ago about a young gal who was really interested in pursuing a career in the police force, and we were at an event together, and I said, "Oh, hold on a second. Let me go get the chief." And you immediately had a conversation with her, and I know she has gone on to pursue a career in the direction of law enforcement. So just being that piece for the community. We always are hearing of so much turmoil going on, and, I know you guys don't always get the best rap. And, what you've done here in Hastings for being out in the public and shaking hands and kissing babies, and that's all so important. It's such a big part of the job, and especially in a community like this. So I'm going to greatly miss you. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and I'm always so in awe when I go to meetings, and I just learn so much. And the public safety's always been one of those. I just learn so much every time I sit down with you guys, and I really appreciate all you do and all you've done for the community of Hastings, and look forward to hearing what you're going to do in your retirement. Thanks, Chief.
Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief, thank you for your years of service. To echo some of the words that have gone before me, we really appreciate everything you've done for Hastings. Another thing that we appreciate is your deep leadership, and one sign of a good leader is how they train their team. And I think what we're seeing here in your replacement, as well as the people who are coming up behind them, we're so fortunate to have your guidance and your vision for what a good department looks like, so that we have a strong future in our force in Hastings. Thank you so much.
And Councilmember Lund.
Well, you're blushing. Lots of great compliments, and it's all true. I think one of the neatest things about you is how creative you are and how forward-thinking you were in your role. Not a lifetime council member, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, but I learned a lot about the police force, and it's much different than what I expected, and a lot of it is because of the things that you brought forward for us to consider, new things, different ways to look at things, and I know that'll carry forward. So the culture piece, that creativity, I think is part of that as well, and it's a better place than when you began, and I know you're leaving it in good hands as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Chief, if you would step to the podium, the council would like to read a proclamation. Starting with Councilmember Brox.
Whereas, Hastings Police Chief Bryan D. Schafer is one of 55 police chiefs to lead the Hastings Police Department during its 165-year history, and will retire after 39 years as a police officer and nearly 8.5 years as Hastings Police Chief, effective May 29th, 2022, and
Whereas he has significantly changed the culture and structure of the organization and advanced the agency further than ever before, and at a time when policing has undergone dramatic changes, and
Whereas he has strengthened the department through hiring and/or promoting 80% of the positions since being hired, and given them the necessary tools to do their job safely and effectively, and
Whereas he has established management and coaching processes based on fairness, accountability, and a strong reward system, and implemented tracking of staff training to ensure compliance with the Minnesota Post Board requirements, and
Whereas he has implemented technology advancements like body-worn cameras and MVR, coupled with accountability demands by the public, and increased access and service by establishing online police and digital forms and applications, and
Whereas he has updated necessary policies and procedures to ensure clean record-giving and retention strategies, with the Records Division earning a reputation as the gold standard in Dakota County, and
Whereas during his tenure, he has embedded the department in the community through volunteerism, fundraising, and board participation in several organizations, including the Hastings United Way, Hastings Family Service, and the Rotary, along with numerous community partner organizations. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Mary Fassbender, and the City Council of the City of Hastings do hereby declare May 29th, 2022 as Bryan D. Schafer Day in the City of Hastings, Minnesota. Well deserved. Well deserved. So put that day on your calendar so we can raise a toast to Bryan Schafer on, and actually, I think that's a Sunday. So,
Yeah, day before a holiday.
there you go. He picked the right day. So at this time, Chief will bring up his officers and we'll do a swearing in.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for that proclamation. And like I said, this was out of my nearly 39 years has been the highlight of my career. This has been the most fulfilling. I had quite a history before I came here, and this by far made the most impression on me, and I just can't thank you enough. I can't thank the community enough, my staff. This is a fabulous staff, and I am so very, very proud of them, and I know you are in good hands. And I think like I said, it's overwhelming to think that that we've come so far in what I would think. I thought we were going to be here in 5 years ago. So it took a while to get things where we wanted it, but I couldn't be more proud today leaving the department as we are. And I was telling somebody today that I couldn't come up with a better scenario than what we have or what you have moving forward. So to my staff, I want to say thank you. You have stood behind me. And what was said tonight could not have been done without you. It's not me. It's getting the right people in the right places to get the job done, and that is a testament to every one of my staff. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. So tonight is about the future, and so we're going to start the night out with get a couple of things here. I'm going to try and formalize this a little bit, even though we've kind of talked a little bit, but. Mayor Fassbender, council members, commissioners, staff, citizens, family, and friends, welcome. As we open tonight's ceremony, I think it's only fitting that we recognize our officers during Police Week. This is ironic that we're able to do that today at the beginning of Police Week, honoring all law enforcement and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. And with that, I would just like to ask for a moment of silence and respect for those that have given the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you. As is mentioned tonight, I have the honor of administering the oath of office to our new police officers, deputy chief, and chief of police. Throughout my tenure, we remained committed to hiring and promoting only the best, and tonight exemplifies just that. This was done with purpose and vision, and I'm confident we have succeeded, as you've heard. These appointments give me great pride knowing that these new officers and new leadership team represent the best of the best, taking Hastings Police Department to the next level in professional policing. I know this community supports you. I know they support all that you have endured to get here and all that is yet to come. At this time, I want to present the first two officers for the oath of office, Police Officer Georgianne Freeman-Den and Matthew Green. If you would step forward, please. A little bit housekeeping tonight. What we're going to do for the audience is I will swear in each group of officers. I will call the family member who you chose to pin the badge to come forward. And once you've done that, we'll do a round of applause and we'll have them take their seats. We're going to save photographs for the end, so we want to go through this whole process, and we will bring everybody up and get a picture with City Council, if that works for everybody. So first, Georgianne Freeman-Den. She's a Hastings resident, formerly served as a crime prevention specialist with the Savage Police Department. Today, I had the honor of accompanying her to Duluth, where she received the 2021 Excellence in Service Award from the Minnesota Association of Women Police Officers. So that was quite an honor that she joined an elite group of female officers from the state of Minnesota and her accomplishments. And the chief still, he makes me thank him because obviously she did all of these, made all these accomplishments while she was in Savage, and we stole her. So Hastings has everything to gain by our hiring of Georgianne. She was formerly, as Councilmember Liefeld talked about, she was actually a reservist with the Hastings Police Department many years ago, and this was always her focus, is to come back here to Hastings to become a police officer. She has a bachelor's degree from University of Minnesota in Sociology of Law, Criminology, and Deviance, and obtained her law enforcement skills certificate with Rasmussen College in 2021. She joined us in January and recently started patrol on the night watch. Officer Matthew Green. Matt was formerly a public safety officer, interim sergeant at the University of St. Thomas. He formerly served as a store co-manager. Is that company manager, I think? Co-manager for Walmart and other sales associate positions over the last 10 years. Matt graduated from Winona State University in Human Resources and Business Management. Choosing law enforcement as a second career, he completed his law enforcement certificate from Century College in 2020, finished his skills at Hennepin Technical College in 21, and joined us in January and is in now his final phase of field training. So with that, at this point in time, I would like to administer the oath, if I might. If you'd raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Georgianne Freeman-Den,
Matthew Green,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of police officer for the City of Hastings,
of police officer for the City of Hastings,
counties of Dakota and Washington,
counties of Dakota and Washington,
and state of Minnesota,
and state of Minnesota,
according to the best of my judgment and ability.
according to the best of my judgment and ability.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character,
my character,
or public trust.
or public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for their actions.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
Congratulations. Get this all straightened out here. Now, if Matt's mother, Mary, would step forward for the badge pinning, and Georgianne's husband, Jake, and sons, Hunter and Maverick. Please give them a round of applause. Can I have a seat? Thank you. What I neglected to mention that I always like to remind people, and I like to remind my officers, that one of the most well-known symbols of policing is, in fact, the badge. This badge is a symbol of trust and authority given to you by the citizens of Hastings. With its issuance, we pray that you will serve a long, safe, and successful career. And I went back into the records, and I believe with the completion of the pinning tonight, that's 39 badge pinnings we've done in the last 8.5 years. So we've been busy. But nonetheless, you see that it was worth it. So next, I'd like to invite Commander Bryan Showalter forward for the oath for Deputy Chief of Police and badge pinning. Right there is good. Perfect. Bryan Showalter is a 16-year veteran of the Hastings Police Department. Showalter began his career here as a patrol officer in 2006 and was later assigned as an investigator in the Dakota County Drug Task Force, where he became a team leader in 2009. Bryan returned to the Patrol Division in 2014 as a new chief who ordered him back immediately. He still won't let me won't forgive me for that, but anyway, came back in 2014 to the Patrol Division and was promoted to Patrol Sergeant. In 2017, he was appointed to the newly created rank of Police Commander when we were reorganizing, supervising the Patrol Division and Department operations. He holds a master's degree in criminal justice leadership from Concordia University, a bachelor's degree in law enforcement from Metropolitan State University, and completed Northwestern School of Police Staff and Command. Commander Showalter exemplifies all aspects of a great leader and all that HPD represents. He's highly motivated and balances oversight with autonomy in getting the job done, and I'm extremely proud of him. Tonight, Bryan's badge will be pinned on by his father, Daryl, and let me do the oath very quickly. You want to step right here? How's that?
Where you prefer me.
Go ahead. Here we go. Raise your right hand. I, Bryan J. Showalter,
I, Bryan J. Showalter,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the ordinance of the City of Hastings,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Deputy Police Chief
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Deputy Police Chief
for the City of Hastings,
for the City of Hastings,
counties of Dakota and Washington,
counties of Dakota and Washington,
and State of Minnesota,
and State of Minnesota,
according to the best of my judgment and ability.
according to the best of my judgment and ability.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character,
my character,
or public trust.
or public trust.
I will always have the courage
I will always have the courage
to hold myself and others accountable for their actions.
to hold myself and others accountable for their actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
His father, Daryl, will be pinning the badge this evening, and his collar brass, his Eagles.
I gave it to you.
Can't find the ring, right?
If I don't bleed, you're doing well.
Okay. There we go. See this?
Don't get the juggler.
Got a first aid kit? It's not going in.
You're stronger than that.
There it is.
That looks good.
Congratulations.
This is good. Last but not least, please join me in welcoming Deputy Police Chief David Wilski for the oath of office for Chief of Police and badge pinning. David D. Wilski began his duties with the Hastings Police Department in May of 2017, following a 20-year career with the University of Minnesota Police Department. He became our first deputy chief as part of, again, reorganization. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in physical education and sociology with a criminal justice emphasis. Since joining the Hastings Police Department, Wilski has led the department's training and development, fleet management, emergency management, and supervised the investigative and evidence room operations. He has been instrumental in forming partnerships with key community leaders and groups. Wilski brings compassion, vision, and energy to the organization and embodies the values of pride and service of the Hastings Police Department. He is a strong and trusted leader and one that you can count on. At this time, I'll ask Dave's son, Jack, to step forward for the badge pinning. Do the oath first. Yeah, I can do the oath. You can stand up here with your father. Are you ready? There you go. All right. I, David D. Wilski,
I, David D. Wilski,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Chief of Police
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Chief of Police
for the City of Hastings,
for the City of Hastings,
counties of Dakota and Washington,
counties of Dakota and Washington,
and State of Minnesota,
and State of Minnesota,
according to the best of my judgment and ability.
according to the best of my judgment and ability.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character,
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself
I will always have the courage to hold myself
and others accountable for their actions.
and others accountable for their actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you, sir. It's the hot seat.
Chief Wilski has a few words to say. And as I said before, I couldn't be more proud of this team and the leadership that's coming forward. So please stand beside them and work with them to accomplish this sometimes incredible feat that we have. So, Chief Wilski.
Thank you, Chief. Bear with me, I'm not as eloquent as Chief Schafer. He's had more practice. I will get there. Mayor Fassbender, members of City Council, City Administration, Public Safety Advisory Commission, distinguished guests, community members, law enforcement colleagues, friends, and family. It is with great honor that I stand here today and accept the challenge and responsibility to be the City of Hastings' 56th Chief of Police. Although I have shared this story with others, it is worth repeating. 5 years ago, I applied for and was offered the position as the Deputy Chief of Police for the City of Hastings. Within the first week of employment, while walking downtown in the historic part of town, I had two separate individuals approach me, shake my hand, thank me for my service. Within the first few weeks after observing officers interact with the public and the professionalism and patience that was displayed on a daily basis, it became clear to me that I had found my home in law enforcement. What I observed is something that many communities strive for: officers' respect for their community and the citizens, and the community's respect for their police department. The past few years have been especially difficult for us in the law enforcement profession. Law enforcement agencies in relatively close proximity have felt their communities walk away from them and show little to no support. The Hastings Police Department experienced the complete opposite. We observed overwhelming support on a weekly basis and continue to see this from the community. I didn't think it was possible to eat so many donuts on a weekly basis, but we managed. I can't thank you enough, and I'm talking to the community as a whole, for standing behind the Hastings Police Department when times were tough and it mattered most. I pledge to do everything in my power to address issues in our community head-on. I will be an attentive listener to issues being raised in our community, stand behind my words, I'll be responsive, transparent, and do everything in my power to make this community safer and stronger. To the police department and those standing in the back of the room, do you know why officers stand in the back of the room? It's because they have their back to the wall and they're safe. So when you walk into a room and you always see officers in the back, that's why we stand back there. And thank you for being here today. I truly appreciate it. This is overwhelming support from our department. And I have observed nothing but excellent service from all of you over the past 5 years. I expect nothing less as we continue to serve our community in the future. Many years ago, when I was serving as a patrol sergeant, my mantra to the team was, "Not on our shift." The translation was that we would do everything in our power to track those causing harm to our community and do everything to keep our community safe. I expect a continued practice of patience and empathy on calls for service that you provide now, and to treat everyone as a member of your family. I pledge to you that I will work diligently to provide you the tools and training necessary for your success. I will stand behind you when laws and policies are followed, and above all, I will treat you with the respect and dignity that you deserve. I am thankful you allowed me to come into your family 5 years ago, and I could not be more excited to walk alongside you in the years to come. City officials and city leaders, although we have worked together for a number of years, I ask for your patience as I navigate these uncharted waters. I have big shoes to fill, but look forward to the continued partnerships as we work together to ensure this historic city continues to thrive and move forward. I pledge to work tirelessly to maintain the positive relationships that have been developed over the years with City Council, city leaders, Public Safety Advisory Commission, our Ministerial Association, Dakota and Washington County law enforcement agencies, and to so many others that make this community so great. To Chief Schafer. Where do I start? I've worked for a number of chiefs over the years, but I have never worked for someone with your energy, intelligence, sense of humor, and patience that are required to be a successful leader. I am hopeful that I have absorbed enough wisdom over the years to keep your legacy moving forward. You are a leader, you're a mentor, you're a friend, and I can't thank you enough for showing me once again how fun and exciting this job can be. What it is like to truly have an open door policy, and for always allowing me to yell to you from my office, which happens about every day. I wish you nothing but the best in your retirement. I hope you can finally find some time to enjoy your hobbies and take a golf lesson once in a while. Deputy Chief Showalter and I are expecting huge improvements on the links. In closing, I'd like to honor those that have been so supportive throughout my career. My father, Doug Wilski, I will not make you stand, but if you could raise your hand. He has not been quiet this long, and I think in the history. My dad always calls me on the way to work, and I usually call him on the way home. Once in a while, he'll ask me if my bobber is down, and that's a way of asking if everything's okay. Might be a hard day at work or just a lot on my mind. Although he doesn't show it, he worries about all of us in this profession. He always has been a great supporter of law enforcement, so thank you for that. My brother, Pat Wilski, if you could raise your hand. He hasn't really done anything, but that's my brother. In all seriousness, he has a great sense of humor, and he can bring me up after a difficult day. We talk on a daily basis. And he also loves to hear about what is going on in Hastings, so I appreciate that. My second cousin, Tom Wilski, if you could raise your hand. Tom Wilski is a retired lieutenant from the Airport Police Department. He was the first Wilski to start in law enforcement and always allowed me to ask a million questions when I had no idea what I was doing. And then finally, my son, Jack. Jack, if you could raise your hand. I could not ask for a better son. A cop can't always make the things that in the family that they'd like to, and kids' sporting events or Boy Scout meetings, band recitals. Jack always understood. There have been times when I fell asleep on the couch after working night shift, and he always understood. Sometimes I had to run out the door, head to town with lights and sirens going. He never complained. Jack has been my best achievement, and I couldn't be prouder. And to my mom, Carolyn Wilski, who couldn't be with us today, she's always been my biggest cheerleader. We lost Mom years ago to pneumonia. She'll never be forgotten. She loved police stories, would often ask what is happening at work, and truly enjoyed every moment that I was a law enforcement officer. So thank you again once for coming tonight and supporting me, the police department, and everyone that you see here today. I couldn't be prouder to be part of this department in this city, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you.
I'd like to invite our department chaplain, Jim Bazowski, forward for a prayer.
I have the privilege of being with these wonderful gentlemen every Monday morning. I have the privilege of being with all these wonderful officers that serve you so faithfully. But I would like to pray for you, David, and you, Bryan, in your new positions. The new officers over here, just so proud of you. Oh. But you know, I want to remind all of us, we all need God's help. And each and every day, you need to know that I'm praying for you. We have a community that prays for you. So if you would, Father, I pray. I thank you, Lord, for our Chief Bryan, for the service that he has given to our city. We acknowledge that you have used him mightily to help us in our town. Thank you for his leadership and his guidance, and again, all that he's done in so many ways. Keep your hand on him and his family in retirement. Give him tons of wonderful things to do and enjoyment with his family. In Jesus' name. Father, for Bryan and David, we pray for them. Lord, to keep your hand on them and their families, to keep them healthy and safe. Give them wisdom and guidance. Keep your hand on them and our new officers, to keep your hand on them as well as all of our officers here in this city. We thank you for their service. Lord, thank you for them. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Now we're going to save this time for photographs. If the promotees and the new officers would like to step forward and to get a picture with the city council. And then there are refreshments and cake upstairs in the community room right above us. As soon as we're done with that, we welcome everybody to come up and enjoy that with us. Thank you so much.
Okay, always very exciting evening in our community. Tonight, we will have Cindy Toppin, Chair of the Heritage Preservation Commission, to recognize the Century Home Contest winner, and Justin Fortney is with us to introduce her. Welcome.
Oh, here we go. All right, thank you very much. Since the HPC had just presented their yearly preservation awards in November, this year for Preservation Month, May for this year, they decided to do something a little different. So I'd like to introduce Cindy Toppin, Chair of the HPC, to make a presentation.
Good evening. This will be kind of fun. There was no shortage of style and choice in the 1920s. Americans were experiencing an unprecedented availability of new products and fashion. I bet you're thinking of flapper dresses like the ones that were out there and bob haircuts, but there were a lot of other changes in the 20s, including mass-produced products and cars. There was an enormous surge in architectural styles and plan availability for houses. In fact, in the 1920s, there were 1,700 housing trade catalog issues produced. The HPC wanted to promote awareness and appreciation of Hastings' architectural heritage and to recognize homes that contribute to this historical integrity of the city. In 2019, we established a Century Home program, well, you want to be Vanna White and hold it up, to acknowledge the residential structures of significant historical interest within the community. The program is voluntary and at the request of the homeowner. The homeowner would only be required to pay the actual cost of the plaque, which is currently $100. This year for Preservation Month, the HPC had a little fun with the help of Dawn Skelly and had a Facebook contest allowing the community to choose their favorite home that is turning 100 this year. The winner was the home of Mitch Johnson and Pam Ponzer, who are with us tonight, at 613 6th Street West. And although they won the free Century Home plaque, the runners-up can purchase a plaque for half the price just for participating in the Facebook contest. And looking through the book of 1,000 homes, one of the publications that Justin found from the 20s, there are two designs that are very similar to Mitch and Pam's house. They have done a fantastic job of maintaining the home over the years. In 2003, they built a garage that complements the architecture of the home. And in 2004, they were presented a preservation award by the HPC and the City Council for all their efforts in maintaining this fantastic property. So congratulations to Pam and Mitch. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. Council members, are there any corrections on the minutes for the regular meeting of May 17th? May 2nd, I'm sorry. Okay. Comments from the audience. At this time, we have options for comments from the audience to be mailed in prior to the meeting as well as interactive featured during the meeting. For the mailed comments, they have been forwarded to the city council and their receipt is acknowledged. Please recognize that items not on the agenda will not be discussed this evening. For live comments, they may either be through Zoom link or in person. We ask that attendees raise their hand in person or use the raised hand feature in the Zoom, and they will be invited to speak one at a time. I also would like to remind everyone that public comment period is not intended for extended dialogue. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the council at this time? And anyone on Zoom? And no one on Zoom. Okay, council items to be considered. Council, are there any items to be considered? All right, consent agenda. Council, I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilmember Fox and Councilmember Lund. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion, state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Tonight we have Intek Plastics at 1000 Spiral Boulevard, and for this item, we will have an introduction by our Economic Development Coordinator, Eric Moss, followed by a public hearing and a potential action for City Council. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Mayor. If you'll give me just a moment to bring up the presentation. Yep, I'm just bringing it up here. Okay, there you go. There we go. Again, thank you, Mayor and Council. Before the Council this evening is a proposed expansion of local business Intek Plastics. A little bit background on that business. It was founded right here in Hastings in 1961. Currently have 210 employees and a little over 125,000 square foot facility, and it is a majority women-owned company. They are considering an expansion to that facility that was identified by staff during a business retention and expansion visit, which was conducted in June of 2021. Again, what they're looking at is roughly a 60,000 square foot expansion to their facility that would allow for an additional 3 extruders. They produce various plastic materials for specifically window companies, especially Anderson windows. It would also allow for additional room for maintenance, break room, and warehouse capacity, which they currently rent at a facility here in Hastings. To help facilitate the expansion, Hedra does own a property adjacent to their existing facility. Some or all of that property may be utilized to help facilitate that expansion. They're looking at an $8.2 million investment in total capital expenditures, 6.6 in building expansion, and 1.6 in machinery and equipment. 46 new full-time jobs with an average annual salary of $67,000 or just shy of $68,000 an hour. So quality paying jobs. The reason we're all here tonight is we are competing with a city in the state of Ohio for this expansion. As a result of that competition, staff has engaged with the State of Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, DEED, to get a sense for what programs might be available for this expansion project to help ensure that we secure this expansion here in the city of Hastings and for the state of Minnesota. 2 programs in particular, MIF and JCF, the Minnesota Investment Fund, and the Job Creation Fund. We're going to start here first with the Minnesota Investment Fund, and this is the portion that includes the public hearing this evening. Minnesota Investment Fund is a low to no interest program that's used to finance machinery and equipment. It's typically up to a 7-year term between 0 and 3% interest. 2 options. We submitted the rough outline in terms of the capital expenditures to the state for initial review. Based on the information within that expansion plan provided by Intek, the state gave basically a preliminary award notice on what could be available. Up to $375,000 in completely forgivable funds, or up to $975,000 entirely repayable. Intek's preference is to pursue the entirely repayable portion. So what I'm asking this evening is to hold a public hearing that has been noticed in the paper for this evening. We had many in the audience earlier. I'm not sure they stuck around for this. But I would ask that you hold that public hearing, and then we have a motion for a resolution to support that application. And certainly I can stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Eric. At this time, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the Intek Plastics project? Anyone in the audience? Anyone on Zoom? No one on Zoom? At this time, I will close the public hearing and open the discussion for council. Council? Councilmember Fulch.
I'll make a motion of support for the resolution.
I'm sorry. Okay, we have two resolutions. You'll do the first. Is that what you're stating, the first resolution?
Sure, yes.
For the second, Councilmember Leifeld. Any discussion, council? All those in favor of the first motion, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion, state by saying nay. And that first resolution prevails. Second resolution? Councilmember Fox? Councilmember Brox?
Mayor, if I could, just on discussion on this one, just so I can go over some of the
Sure.
outline of what's in that second resolution. So the second one is for the Job Creation Fund through deed. So this is a pay for performance, unlike the Minnesota Investment Fund that is loan money up front. This is money that is paid on performance. So once they actually create the jobs, the state then provides it in form of basically a rebate based on the level of pay for those jobs that have been created, up to $725,000 with the JCF award potential. So
Okay.
just as an FYI.
And are you still okay with that motion, Councilmember Fox and Councilmember Brox? Okay? Any discussion, any further discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed to that motion, state by saying nay. And that motion prevails too. Thank you, Eric. Community development, we have appeal of administration decision, the Hudella property at 15213 Ravenna Trail. Welcome, John, and this will be followed by an appeal by Mr. Hudella and potential action by City Council. Please note that the reversal of the decision by an administrative official requires 6 of 7 votes. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. Before us tonight is an unusual role that the council does take, and that is that of the role of the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. Within our city code, it stipulates the criteria in which an individual can appeal to the City Council, acting as the Board of Adjustments and Appeals over a decision that is made by staff. So I will get into some of the details of the issues tonight. Mr. Hudella is here as well to present information on his behalf. So what we're looking at here is Mr. Hudella's property at 15213 Ravenna Trail. So you can see it on here, Glendale Road, Ravenna Trail. Mouse isn't working. There it is. And the property that he owns here. And there's a swimming pool on his property that was constructed, and there's rules pertaining to how the fence is constructed around the swimming pool. In the packet, we note one provision, and that is City Code Section 15505, Subdivision F4. Let's go to this. That's easier. This is part of the zoning ordinance. It states that fences installed around swimming pools from the ground up must be a minimum of 4 feet high, which this is, and be non-climbable. And that's really the issue that we're looking at today, essentially whether this is non-climbable or not. We also have similar provisions under City Code Chapter 15009. This is construction regulations, saying something very similar. That a fence shall be of a type not readily climbed by children. So these are the regulations that we as the administrative official, in particular our building official Travis Dunn, has made the interpretation that the fence installed by Mr. Hudella is climbable and therefore in violation of the ordinance regulations here. What we're looking at is a fence that looks something like this. This is Mr. Hudella's pool. We're looking specifically at the fence gate here. It's a cable wire design in which the cables are strung across here. In our interpretation, we believe that this is a climbable fence. Within your packet, there's some information related to the ins and outs of your role as the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. The important aspect today, as the mayor had pointed out, is that in order for an appeal to be successful, it requires 6 of 7 council members tonight to vote affirmative to to overturn staff's assertion on that, the fence being climbable. Little background information within your packet itself. We had an original permit that came forward back in February of '21 by Performance Pool and Spas. It was a permit for the pool, which also included the fence on it. So this is what it looked like in the original fence, the pool fence document, showing the house, showing the pool, and then stipulating some of the construction of the fence itself, being a 4-foot tall decorative aluminum fence. So that came forward in February, was approved in February. Construction began. In July of '21, we received an email from Mr. Hudella stating that he would install the fence instead of the pool contractor. So essentially, the pool contractor, I believe, went through the work to install the pool, and Mr. Hudella would take over the installation of the fence. We had an inspection of that fence back in October by our building inspector, Craig Schultz, who determined that it didn't meet our code because we termed it to be climbable. That was confirmed as well by our building official, Travis Dunn, and had some other communications back and forth with Mr. Hudella, and leads us to the point we're at today, and that is a determination of whether this is climbable or not. Within your packet, Mr. Hudella had provided some information that he can provide a little more detail. What he had stated was there's 3 residents in town that were not required to have a fence of this type because of a lockable heavy-duty auto cover. There's an auto cover that goes over this pool. And there's some letters from commercial contracting companies explaining that cable rail systems are widely accepted and considered no more climbable than a chain link fence. And then there was some email traffic in which there was some discussion as to whether a separate fence permit should be submitted back in July. We made the assertion at that point that we would just cover it under the original permit at that time. So from our opinion here as staff, we believe that this is a climbable fence, and so that's the assertion that we're bringing forward. Essentially tonight, your role as the Board of Adjustments and Appeal is to make a determination as to whether you believe that this fence is climbable. If you believe it is, it would be in defense of what staff is asserting on this one. If you believe that this is non-climbable, as Mr. Hudella believes, then you would be looking to overturn staff's. And so Mr. Shane Hudella is here present if you'd like to have him address the council, or I can stand for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you. This question is for staff before we get to the applicant. I take a step back here on this process that we're going through here tonight. We have something that's brought in front of us that we got to make a decision on my opinion that it's an ordinance is subjective. So now we're going to be a subjective answer. But I'm curious about how many pools in this community and other communities went through the same thing that never got a chance for a hearing. So if we make a decision, no matter which way it goes, when does an ordinance ever get reviewed? Because in my opinion, this ordinance is subjective, because the word non-climbable is poorly written because it puts a lot of pressure on staff, and then it puts pressure on the community, it puts pressure on us to say, all right, who's going to be the decision maker? But we also got our packets on Thursday, and we got to make a decision by Monday. I go to the process that I don't think this process is very well done, that there should be almost a hearing. And then we come back in 2 weeks after we do our due diligence and figure out what the right answer is if we're going to be put in these situations. I personally don't like to be put in a situation on a thing that came on Thursday about something that's subjective. And I'm curious about, as a community representing us, are we at liability? I read the packet, and the packet said, sooner or later the homeowner has to take some liability too. And it sounds like they did. Their insurance is saying yes, but with that, it's their property. So I question a lot of this stuff, because even if I back up all the way to the applicant, John just had it up there. If you could put on the blueprint, John, it says 4-foot tall decorative. There's nothing about horizontal. There's nothing about vertical. That's misleading. What's decorative? This is decorative to me, that's put in front of us, but so is a vertical. I think our ordinance is poorly written, and my question for us to make a decision today is wrong. We should not have to make it on an ordinance that we're just catching up to speed, and now we're going to put us between staff making a decision. I don't like the process. I'd like to listen to my colleagues on this, but I'm hung up on that we have to make a decision. We got to have 6 of 7 to overturn a staff that we're here to support staff too on decision-making, and that's not fair to staff either. So I just share that I don't like the process. I think I'm going to start with it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is for staff. I was just curious as to how is it that these applications for the installation, how, I see this map and it's very simple and it's just, a perimeter map for the most part. And so is there a step in the process that was missed? Because I feel terrible for Shane, to be quite honest. I'm very sympathetic. I mean, there's probably a huge investment to have that particular fence installed, and you thought you were going through all the proper channels. And so I'm very sympathetic to that. I can't imagine if I was facing the same financial implications of having to remove that entire fence and have a new one put in place. And so I'm curious as to how it is that it was missed. Where in the process is there opportunity for improvement? Because, and if you could please just answer that first, because, if there was something that we should be doing better, right? So that, for instance, if they have to give more detail as what is the proposed fence, rather than just showing the perimeter around the pool, I think that would be very helpful. And so is that question asked in the application process when these plans are submitted?
Sure, council member. Yeah, I mean, there's a situation here. It would have been much better if we had further clarity on this, that if we provided more clarity as to what we thought we were reviewing as the fence on this, that certainly would be helpful. We don't like to be in a situation in which someone does an improvement and then we review it and find out that it wasn't as we expected it. And so be able to have clear understanding between our rules and what is being proposed by the applicant certainly could have been better here. I mean, we point out within our ordinance and within our handouts that it needs to be non-climbable, but if we would have seen the wire fence, the cable stay fence to begin with, it would have been much more clear, and we could have avoided this, I believe.
Okay, so the city doesn't ask for any more of the specifics as to what kind of fence it is that was being installed, but rather just a parameter depiction as to where it was being installed?
We typically do. In this case, we did not.
In this case, it was not, so he
Right.
didn't get the opportunity to submit because it wasn't asked. Okay.
Right. The extent of what we had on here was a 4-foot-tall decorative aluminum fence, which we assumed would be meeting our requirements on there. Now, if I don't know if the cable stay fence is what was proposed and what was thought of at the time this permit was done. I wouldn't think of that necessarily as aluminum, but as something different. But again, it's more of having a better clarity as to what is being proposed that would have been more helpful here on both sides.
Okay, and then when they put in the application, what was provided as, what's the exchange of instructions? Because, I myself, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what all the codes are, and so how is it that when a submission is being provided, like what kind of exchange of information is there that happens with applicants?
Sure. Typically, we have a site plan drawing, which is shown here. We'd have some detail that would show what the fence would look like, which was not a part of this. Typically, what we would have too is you have a separate fence permit from the pool permit itself. This one, we combined it into one. It would be best to have those not combined as one. Sometimes we do have that as a single permit, sometimes we don't, but I think it's more clear when you're looking at these two separate items and that you have the full information on it.
Sure. So is there anywhere that they have to sign off, something that says, I promise not to install a fence that meets the requirements that are within the code, that it's non-climbable? Is there like a waiver form or something
Yeah.
to that effect? So that there's a disclosure that, hey, it has to be like this at a minimum?
Sure. Councilmember, nothing specific to the climbable provision, But I believe on the building permit itself, there's a sign-up provision that states that I understand and will follow the ordinances of the city of Hastings. Now, again, we're looking at a provision here that might not be as clear as some on that one, but we do have that on there.
Okay, and then it's up to the applicant to actually look up to find what the city code is that pertains to the application that they're putting in?
Well, we have a handout that goes along with the fence permit and pool permit, and it goes through a paragraph of these provisions, and one of those being that it be non-climbable. So, no, we don't expect that an applicant to look up section 155, whatever, on that one, but on the handout there, it goes through the steps of what you need to do, and it does have that language in there that has the non-climbable pointed out.
So it is pointed out, and they do have to sign off on it at some point that they're going, okay, so that they're agreeing to the city code when they're putting in their application. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, John, so trying to get an idea, so the fence is, the gate is about from ground to top, 4 feet. How far apart are the cables?
Well, let's go back to the picture.
What's the gap thing?
Yeah, the gap between these, it's kind of hard to see with the gate picture here, but I'm taking a real wide judgment here between these posts here that this is something that might be about 6 feet or so.
Okay, and I mean horizontally between the,
Oh, horizontally
For the
between,
wires.
between these two, I think,
John, I believe they're 3.5 inches.
3.5 inches, yep.
so there's really no play there to go through.
Depends. If they're well tensioned, no. If the tension is easing in this for whatever reason, it could be. But that's what would happen with these
So
over
my-
time potentially.
Thank you, John. So my question then comes in with the fencing that we show in the packet, the chain link fence. Chain link's okay?
Chain link has been deemed to be non-climbable, correct. So within the packet itself, when we were looking at potential solutions for Mr. Hudella, this was one solution that was proposed, so that he could utilize the fence posts that are there, and instead of having the wires, apply a chain link mesh fence on there.
So, thinking back to what Councilmember Vaughn had said, I mean, when we're looking at what's in front of us and given the time frame of this, I'm a 54-year-old out-of-shape woman, and I can guarantee you I can get over that chain link fence if I have to. I know I can. As a child, I could get over it in like less than 2 seconds if I was being chased. I'm concerned about this. This is sharp looking. I mean, I'm a few years out from needing a fence, so I've been looking at lots of different ideas, and this is really, really sharp. I don't want anyone seeing in my backyard, however, so based on where I live, I don't want people seeing in my backyard. No one needs to see me at the pool. But I have a problem voting one way or another on this at this time. I'm concerned the way the ordinance is written and the gaps, because to me that is very subjective. That word climbable to me is, this to me, I'm envisioning myself trying to climb over this. It's funny, but I'm feeling that that give in the cable, so that's going to, I feel like it's going to cause some footing issues, as opposed to the chain link fence, which I'm just gonna pop my toes in and climb that. This to me looks like a Jacob's ladder. It's been years since I've done that, but, that flexibility of that when you're trying to climb that Jacob's ladder. But I don't feel comfortable voting on this variance just based on the fact of the way it's written, the way the ordinance is written. I feel like there's far too many holes and it's far too subjective. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Councilmember Brox.
So I think the legal language is problematic, but I don't think that that's exclusive to the city of Hastings, because I went and found the city of Rosemount, city of Burnsville, city of Egan, and all the ordinances they have similar language. So we're not unique in that aspect. So this has to have been settled before. So then my next question was, because I'm a dork and I like to look at legal language, was, well, where did that language come from? So I went to the state ordinance, the state law, and the state law actually says, has similar language in it that says that the fencing needs to, in provision 4717.1550, there's several parts, but under the fencing part, which is subpart 2, the letter E, it says, the fence may not be a readily climbable design. So we don't have the word readily in our ordinance, we have the word climbable, but certainly our language for our ordinance must have been derived from the state language, which is equally vague. So then my next question would probably be for council, which is maybe not a fair question because I didn't ask you in advance, but is there a case law or another point of reference that language is coming from that we could reference as to what climbable is actually supposed to mean?
Your Honor, members of the council, I appreciate that you preface it with, I didn't ask this in advance, because obviously I can't do case law at the table. But that's a great question, and I just want to point something out for the council. We are here because of what I believe is a technicality in our code. The code allows appeals to the Committee of Adjustments for zoning decisions. That's in state law. The Committee of Adjustments is intended to interpret zoning decisions when there's a question. That's the job. You act as the Committee of Adjustments. The only reason we're here is because this provision for the climbable fence is in 2 parts of our code. It's in building code, in the building section, which is totally the jurisdiction of the building official. If that's the only place climbable appeared for a fence around a swimming pool, this would not be in front of you. This would be a decision of the zoning administrator, or of the building official, and appeals from the building official, who is a state-appointed building official, then goes to, I believe it is the Department of Labor and Industry for an interpretation. So the building official has authority over building code. The reason we're here is because that also, those words appear in your zoning section. I believe it's a mistake to be in the zoning section because this is a building code issue. So it's something that's correctable, but this isn't, you're right, this is absolutely not a fair appeal to you. This is an appeal that should go to those that understand construction and building codes. I don't know how we fix that tonight, other than maybe we ask for an interpretation from the Department of Labor and Industry. I think that might be the solution here. To get what does the definition of climbable mean? What have you used? Have these cable types of fences be deemed to be climbable by your office? They're the ultimate building code officials. So I believe that's a better interpretation for them. And if the council wanted to postpone any decision tonight, I think that might provide some clarity.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilmember Brox.
I think that makes a lot of sense, only because I think what I'm hearing from my colleagues and what I feel uncomfortable about is making a determination about a building code interpretation that I am not in the industry, nor do I understand everything that's involved in the industry, nor do I understand building fences, materials required. I mean, I have a very basic knowledge. I think we've created, an obstacle for a resident, so that concerns me because it doesn't seem that the communication was clear on the front end to the extent that it needed to be for that person to make an informed decision about what kind of fence they built. But also, I want us to follow our ordinances. So, and I want to back up our city officials who are making these kind of determinations on a daily basis. And I don't want to make constant exceptions because then we're creating problems in the future. I think someone referenced precedent. Once we establish that there's an exception, are we going to get more requests for these same kind of exceptions? I think those are all things that we need to take into account and have been really solid points. So personally, I like the idea of getting an opinion from the Department of Labor and Industry, who are professionals, who do know what climbable means, can define it for us, and maybe give us categories of what a climbable fence looks like so that I can make a more data-based, informed decision.
Thank you, Councilmember Brox. Councilmember Fox.
Your Honor, this is a really unique position for us as a body to be in, being a Board of Adjustments and Appeals. None of us are in the field. So as has been said, However, I would like to point out that our staff is in the field, and they do work in this every day. And we are trusting them to read our ordinances and city codes and do their jobs, help us do our jobs by those codes. So I think ultimately, in discussing this earlier today, it came to light that we are supposed to see if this ordinance was read wrong by our staff. And I'd just like to point that out. As we continue talking about it, I would also support if we would like clarification. I think that's smart, and then we can have a little bit more discussion as well. But I lean towards supporting staff in their decisions.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Vaughn.
Agree. But I also say we have an ordinance, and there's maybe many ordinances that are probably poorly written. And I mentioned this with the police about consistency. They follow laws, they're consistent in how they do it. I want to be able to set our staff up so they can make a consistent decision, not subjective, because it's not fair for them or it's not fair for the applicant. That's my question probably to our attorney then, saying, that's why I asked about the process. How do we pause something that says, here's a hearing coming, and then we can make some decisions saying, this should not be in front of the appeals. This has got some poorly written stuff. Let's help the staff out. It just, maybe it's in a committee structure that it sends it to. Or is it up to staff just to say, keep grinding it? That ordinance book is big. How do we get through them all? And are we just going to react to ones that somebody doesn't agree with? That's poor practice. That's what I talked about with the process. I don't want to be reacting to a bunch of different subjective ordinances. How do we fix them? I don't know the answer, but going back to this applicant one, and I think that's why I asked about this, we're focused on the word climbable, but there's also investments out there, and there was precedence from what we're hearing that the last building official had made some decisions. Yeah, they probably not to the book, but there was also, if you see in the picture that was presented, a cover that was put on that is allowed by some cities. So now we have inconsistent between cities. That's bad policy, if you ask me. We need to help our staff by writing it the correct way, what is acceptable, so it's pretty cut and dry when they go into the application process. So I don't know how to fix that, but I'm going to support that this gets tabled until we at least get the one review of it. But I don't know if that should be the final review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Lund.
Yeah, and not that you're not including the residents in your comments, but we're talking a lot about how do we make this easy for staff to make decisions on and read. They are the experts, and it's kind of a little bit here and there. So, put it on somebody that's not doing that day to day to interpret some of that, which there's not a lot of words in that. It's a couple sentences, right? And sure, we have a lot of ordinances, and your point is well taken. How do you eat that elephant, right? But I think we also have to take into consideration the residents, and no one is necessarily trying to skirt the rules or get around something necessarily, but they put in an application, spent a lot of money, thought they were fine, and then they're surprised. And we shouldn't be doing that either, right? So.
Thank you, Councilmember Lund. Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gotta love the web, right? In just searching fences, pool fences, had the fence been vertically, it's not climbable. But in addition to that, very few chain link fences are listed here. The chain is a much tighter chain, not a toe in a chain, because like that, okay? That is, and that's where my concern comes in. If we're going to deem that as not climbable, that's where my issue's at, But it's that cover. That cover is, I know it's got amazing weight restrictions, and anyone who owns one, it's key to everything that's happening in that backyard. The fence is just a deterrent, right? The fence is a deterrent. And for a lot of pool owners, the fence is we talk about it in crosswalks. It's that false sense of security. Whereas that pool cover, on the other hand, is the safety feature of this backyard. So I'm going to support, everyone's recommendation to get further consideration here. And as much as I want to support city staff because they are our experts, as Councilmember Fox had said, I'm having a hard time putting my hat on that's okay. When you're pointing to this isn't, but that is, I can't support that, so. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with you, Councilmember Liefeld. I have many a times jumped fences just like that myself. And so, I've been there, done that.
today,
Yeah, I was a little bit of a tomboy back in the day. But, I feel that, honestly, I feel that something was also missed, though, in the permit process, where it sounds to me like that there should have been 2 permits, and for some reason it was determined that one was allowable, and then this review of what the fencing material was missed for review. And so, I don't believe that anyone did anything that they thought was inappropriate. And I'm sure the contractor wasn't trying to get around something. And so, I just have to ask, this gets complicated because we're asked to make a determination on a very specific issue, and it's my understanding, and Ms. Land can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're being asked to determine specifically if this was climbable or not climbable, and that's what the specific question is, correct? But I also feel that there is some obligation on the part of city staff for, in the process of trying to make a review process more efficient, that it wasn't as thorough of a review as it should have been, so that this would have been caught before it was signed off on. Because if staff signed off on decorative aluminum fencing, that's what they installed, isn't it? If it's
No.
aluminum cable, or no, it's not. So it's not meeting so that's just what I'm asking, is and so last, in the write-up, it had said that there has been some inconsistent application of this fencing. Just for clarification on that from staff, if there truly has been, in the past under the previous building inspector, if that's true, and if there, if that has been done, I would like to hear that from staff, specifically verifying whether or not that's been allowed in the past for, just for the pool cover to be allowed. And in those cases, if they did so occur, if the applicant had to sign off on something, like they're assuming the risk and the liability of not, of adhering to the city's code. And so I'm just trying to find if there's any possible way that we can find a compromise in this situation. And that's only if it's true that this hasn't been applied consistently in the past.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Thanks. John, I think there's a missing puzzle because the first applicant, the builder, stated that it was aluminum fence, which there's no see-through, it's aluminum, correct? Non-climbable. Then Mr. Hudella states that he's going to put up the fence. That's where I think the missing puzzle is, because he didn't have a description of the fence he was going to put up. Am I correct?
I believe more description would be helpful, absolutely.
Okay, so I think it's both parties that might have needed a little more interaction. It's beautiful. My fear is, one second, I'll let you talk, Sheen. My fear is children, of course, can climb over anything. this looks very climbable to me, and that's why we're here, is the discussion of, is it climbable? Personally, I think yes. Can we resolve it? It's a hard question for us. I've stated to you and Dan and others that, you know, you could keep it and maybe can you put plexiglass on one side of it so you can't make it climbable, so you can still see the beauty of it, and still make it safe. So, Shane, if you wanted to come speak a little bit, you could. He raised his hand to see if he, sure. If you would, go to the podium, please, and state your name and your address, even though we know who you are.
All right, no problem. My name is Shane Hudella. My address is 15213 Ravenna Trail in Hastings. Mayor, council members, thanks so much for giving me an opportunity. I've been chomping at the bit over there. This is a tough one, right? I'm a play-by-the-rules kind of guy and would certainly abide by council's decision tonight on this. I'm also a former licensed contractor. I was a contractor for 6 years, held the license, passed the test. There was a disconnect. I like Travis. I work with him and John frequently on some other developments and stuff we're doing on there. I offered to submit plans on this fence when I notified Travis that I was going to do the fence instead of the pool company. He tried to do me a solid on it, so I feel bad being here tonight. He said, hey, no sweat, just ensure that it's 4 feet tall with self-closing, self-latching gates. So the cable rail, I went ahead just based on my experience in the construction industry, consulted with a couple of the licensed construction folks that you have letters in the packets that I sent. Yep, hey, the aluminum cable rail that you installed, widely used in the industry, and I think Councilmember Liefeld hit the nail on the head. If you've ever tried to walk on rope or cable, it's incredibly difficult. If this would have, if I would have been Joe homeowner that just installed horizontal wood across there, like a farm post almost, it would be 100% climbable. So the whole controversy comes into what's our personal interpretations of climbable or not. And I think Travis got this one wrong. I've got some industry folks too that say, hey, yep, this is good. The fence has passed my wife's state licensed daycare inspection as well as our insurance inspection. And I'm not going to go on and on. I know the late night's getting late. I would ask, I want to get the fence issue behind me, and I would love to have council take a vote tonight on it, even if it's not in my favor. I think John mentioned he's only seen 6 or 7 of these instances where homeowners have come to council on an appeal like this. So I think you have time before the next Shane Hudella shows up to dispute a building official. So I think there's time to do policy there. But thanks for the time to speak. Any questions for me before I go sit back down?
Council? Dan?
For clarification, when you submitted that you were going to be taking over that application, what did you say you were going to build?
So I emailed Travis, and the dialogue was, Travis, hey, I'm going to do the fence instead of the pool company. The pool company wanted $8,500 to put a chain link fence up like that one, and it's about $1,000 worth of materials from Menards for that. So I emailed Travis, hey, I'm going to do my own fence. Would you like me to submit a separate permit and plans for it? Travis responded with, no, not necessary. You can keep it under the pool permit that's already been drawn. Just ensure that it's 4 feet high with self-latching, self-closing gates.
Did your email correspondence with our building official indicate that it was consistent with the original application that it was decorative aluminum?
No, sir. I would argue, though, that the cable's aluminum. But I did not specifically point out that it was going to be different from the original permit that Performance Pool and Spa had. However, I did offer to submit plans on the design, which in my opinion would have prompted, well, maybe it's something different than what Performance Pool had originally permitted.
Council? Dan?
So,
Continue.
for clarification, the email dated July 27th of '21, when you were indicating that you were taking that over, and you emailed, quote, fence install, 4-foot high decorative fence with 2 self-closing, self-latching gates covered under the, as covered under the PPS, it's Performance Plus Pools or something, I think? Or do you need to stop in and draw? So your question, actually looking at the email, indicates it was as applied by your former contractor and indicated that it was a decorative fence.
I'm not sure I understand your question, sir.
I believe that this fence changed from what the original application was, and saying that our building official dropped the ball is incorrect. I don't believe it was intentional.
No,
But I believe that what you presented to the building official and what you're saying here today are inconsistent.
I think there's some blame on both sides, and I don't think it's intentional for either one. I think that I stand by, hey, I offered to submit new plans for it. Travis said, hey, don't worry about it, keep it under the permit. I probably own a little responsibility in saying, hey, well, it's different than what Performance Pool and Spa had. At this point, I don't know that I had even seen the plans that Performance Pool and Spa had submitted to the city. I would have to go back and look at that, but I don't think there was any ill will on either side, sir. I think it comes down to the discretion of what's climbable and what's not, and like I indicated, I get along well with the city. We've got lots of other projects to do. I just didn't agree with Travis on this one, and thought, well, I'll come see the council and get another opinion on it.
Dan?
Back to the earlier discussion, I'm sorry, Council, on interest at what the industry definition is of climbable. There was discussion earlier about sending it to Department of Labor and Industry. I'm pretty confident that there is precedents existing or definitions, as pointed out earlier. Chain link, hey, if it's a standard 2.5-inch gap, you betcha that's climbable. Under the industry, if it's 1 3/4 or less, it's considered non-climbable. I think there really is a specific definition you can get on the cable stays, but the answer to that isn't here at the dais, it's up in St. Paul. And really advise, go back to that earlier discussion about asking them, asking Department of Labor and Industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Councilmember Fox.
Your Honor, I would move to table this discussion and send a question to the Department of Labor and Industry to clarify what climbable or non-climbable fencing is.
And a second by Councilmember Brox. Additional discussion? Oh, non-debatable.
Tabling is not debatable.
Okay, table
There
is,
can be discussion.
there can be discussion. Councilmember Vaughn?
You can
Yes.
discuss, it's just not debatable.
Yes.
I just wanted to confirm. I mean, we're going to, pretty vague. We're going to send something up there to ask, do we send the whole packet? I don't know how, I've never had to do this.
Yep. Your Honor, members of the council, I have asked Dolly for interpretation questions before, so we will provide very specific facts that they can apply the definition to and give us an interpretation. So we're not just basing it on, is our ordinance vague? Is in this situation, is this climbable? We'll send a specific question.
Okay, thank you.
Still do a vote.
Vote on tabling, yes.
Okay. other discussion? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion, state by saying nay. And that motion prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Shane. Okay, council members, do we have any announcements? Okay, I do have a couple. This week is National EMS Week, National Police Week, and National Public Works Week. Please join me in great and heartfelt thank you to the employees in these departments for their service to our community. Tomorrow, May 17th, we have Public Safety Night downtown in honor of our police, EMS, and fire teams. All are invited for the free event. The Minnesota Department of Transportation, in collaboration with the city, is beginning a study to Highway 61 to evaluate transportation improvements. An informational public meeting is on Wednesday, May 18th, from 5 to 7 at City Hall. Presentations are 5:15 and 6:15. City offices will be closed Monday, May 30th, in observance of Memorial Day. The Hastings Police Department, in collaboration with Minnesota Commerce Fraud Bureau, announces the launch of a catalytic converter marking program in the community. Marking kits are in partnership with local dealerships, Valley Chevrolet, Hastings Chrysler, and Valley Buick and GMC. Please see the city website for a list of eligible vehicles, makes, and models. On Tuesday, June 7th, join us for summer kickoff to our 2022 Levy Park events. Live music, Bollywood dancers, inflatables, face paintings, caricature artists, balloon artists, and more. All ages are welcome to this free event. Tuesday, May 17th, Heritage Preservation Commission has a meeting at 7 p.m. Wednesday, May 18th, Planning Committee has a meeting at 7 a.m. Thursday, May 19th, Public Safety Advisory Commission has a meeting at 6:30 p.m. Monday, May 23rd, Planning Commission has a 7 p.m. meeting. Wednesday, May 25th, Arts Task Force has a meeting at 6 p.m. And Monday, June 6th, City Council regular meeting at 7 p.m. At this point, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Although Councilmember Brox and Councilmember Vaughn, no discussion. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And the motion prevails. We are adjourned.